Hi, this is Roger. Thanks for dropping by. Today I thought I'd have a look at the Aerangis genus. I mean, I've only got 5. It is quite a large genus. There are quite a lot. Oh, sun's going to come out, or sun's going to try and come out. I don't say it actually will, but you can see, I mean, just the 5 I've got. There's quite a considerable variety of size and shapes. I mean, you've got sort of curly-leaved ones, again, curly-leaved ones with sort of quite succulent straight leaves. These leaves in comparison are quite flimsy, more delicate, shall we say. These are thick and chunky. And then I've only got one giant, which is Alicei, but this one's an enigma. Best thing I can do really is to now break off and do each one individually, and at the end of the video there is a very, very good book that you can get on the Aerangis genus. Fortunately, most of the time it's incredibly expensive. I managed to pick mine up second hand and got it for a very good price, and even though I've only got 5, I will probably get more. I like the variety. So we'll have a look at them each individually and have a chat about where they come from, how they grow in the wild, where they grow in the wild, if there are any in the wild left, because some of them are getting critically endangered in the wild. And quite honestly, some of the Aerangis, if it wasn't for the cultivated plants, they're probably going to be lost. You know, the habitat is just getting destroyed hand over fist. It's ridiculous what's going on. Anyway, we'll have a look at each one and chat about it in turn. Okay, we'll have a look at Mr. Sidii, as in, I'll put pop-ups with the names, make sure they're spelt right and all that sort of stuff. This is my only mainland Africa one. You know, this comes from places like Malawi, Mozambique, Zimbabwe, even down as far as South Africa, but probably more in the north of South Africa. But mainland Africa anyway, it's my only non-Madagascan species, and I've only got species, I haven't come across any hybrids. This one doesn't come up for sale very often, but you can find it. It has lovely wavy edges to the leaves. It's a nice looking plant. Now this one, if I can find some pictures of this growing wild, then you'll get them. But basically this is a evergreen forest, incredibly high rainfall and high humidity type plant. So this isn't going to be one of your bright light varieties, you know, coming from an evergreen forest. It's going to be a mid-light variety. I would never say heavy shade, but some of them really do grow in dense shade. Its conditions are up the warm end of intermediate, so this doesn't like to chill down, this doesn't like to get cold. Well, you can tell from the places it comes from. It doesn't tend to get cold in those places very much, but it depends on elevation. But yeah, a rainforest dweller basically, so it's used to a lot of rainfall, a lot of humidity. I mean, I grow mine on a mount, and certainly this time of year this will get absolutely soaked daily. And these roots work like Vanda roots. You know, they're virtually white. They're slightly discoloured as they age, but the newer roots, the ones with the growing tips, are sort of almost white. And you get these wet and they go deep green. And quite honestly, I water it like a Vanda. I don't dunk it in the bucket, but I give it a heavy soaking until those roots are dark green all over. And then I know those roots can't take in any more moisture on that day. Now, this tends to branch out, so you can see there's a new little plant there at the base coming out to the side. There's another little one there coming out there, and the top of the plant is in 2 parts and quite actively growing new leaves at the moment. There's a nice big new leaf on the left part, one on the right and a new one again coming on the right. So this one's growing well for me. As it bloomed, as it hell. And basically this is described as free flowering. Yeah, well, in your dreams at the moment. I see no reason for this plant not to bloom in its next blooming season. I mean, I've had this a while now. Tiny little plant when I got it. So it's growing on nicely. And quite honestly, it's blooming size, so it could spike at any time. But a lovely little plant. A nice little miniature. It's never going to grow too big. So, in my Aerangis collection, I really do like this one. I just like the plant. I like the colour of the leaves, the shape of the leaves, the way it grows. Nice little plant. Recommended if you can get hold of it, but you do need to have high humidity. You don't need the bright light, so you know, but it does need good humidity, and with any plant that likes good humidity, you can virtually guarantee it needs air movement as well. I don't need to read that anywhere or look it up, I just know. You very rarely get humid atmospheres where the air doesn't move, and it's due to the temperature. Where you get temperature, hot air rises, and when it rises, something's got to come in to replace it, so the air is moving. Lovely little plant, really like that one. Okay, the next one to have a look at is citrata. This is the one that most people are going to come across quite easily. Madagascar only again, and evergreen forests again. So this is not a bright light lover. It tends to grow on smaller trees rather than larger trees. Well, if you're in an evergreen forest and you're on smaller trees, you're down near the forest floor, aren't you? So you're not in bright light. So relatively low light one, and quite honestly, looking at the colour of my leaves, I think at some point in its not too distant history, it's been kept too bright, because these leaves in the pictures that I can see should be a darker green than that. Anyway, a moisture lover, and it basically says it does best mounted, but if you can't keep the humidity high and keeps the roots hydrated on a daily basis, then it will grow in a pot in a sort of fine bark mix. But then obviously it should be heading towards dryness before it's watered each time. But in my environment, this is a daily watering job. This was in bloom when I got it, and like an idiot, I didn't take a picture, so I haven't actually got a picture of my blooms, but it has bloomed, so it is flowering size. Again, not a huge grower, and it can branch, it can produce plantlets. They're not strictly speaking kikis on Aerangis, they're plantlets. I can't see the difference itself, but no, it's all in the name. Anyway, that's a new acquisition to me, so you know, I'm just looking after it, hoping to see some signs of life, because the leaves haven't moved since I got it. So there's no sign of any new leaves yet, and no sign of plantlets, and no sign of active root growth. But you know, it's probably had a bit of a culture shock coming here, so we'll see how we get on with that one. That's citrata. I first saw that on one of Rachel's videos and thought, I'm having that. So I looked out for one, found one in speciotic plants, I think this one came from, in flower. So yeah, and didn't cost me a fortune either, like some plants do. Okay, that's that one. Okay, next one, this is my little fastuosa. Blooms are just going over now, but it's been out some time. That did have 4 buds on it, but 2 blasted, much to my annoyance, but 2 bloomed, you know. Swings and roundabouts, take the good with the bad and all that. Do you know, that spike even looks like it's got signs of extending, so it might even have some more buds. I haven't known that before. I mean, this one has bloomed for me before, but anyway, this one pushes out nice little new leaves in the centre, and it's quite a slow grower, you know, and it's one of those where, unless it's grown incredibly well, for each new leaf you get, you're probably going to lose one. You can see that right-hand leaf at the back is starting to desiccate a bit. So it never grows huge. It's a nice little miniature again. Madagascan. And sorry about that, somebody at the door. Yeah, this is a strange one because this is normally found in evergreen forests. It's a low light one. Well, you know, low light in Madagascar is probably medium light in the UK. So, you know, I wouldn't keep it in the dark. All plants need some light, and yeah, this one gets medium light for me. It never gets near bright light. That's not the sort of place it comes from. So although it's evergreen forests, it's also found in seasonally dry forests, which means, well, effectively at one point, if it's growing in that environment, it's going to get dry. But the chances are the humidity stays quite high, even if the rainfall drops off a bit. And it's most commonly found in evergreen forests in relatively low light levels. So to me, that, you know, go by the majority. That's where it's found most of the time. So that's how I look after it. Nice little miniature and very fragrant little flowers. You know, for those two flowers, well, unfortunately, they've got Brassivola to compete with at the moment. But yeah, fragrant little flowers, delicate, night scented. So you've got to wait for it to get dark. And remember to go and have a look and a sniff when it's dark. It's easily forgotten if you've got night scented blooms, unless they're in your house, of course. So high humidity, I'd say in the UK, medium light levels, something like that. But certainly don't let that get too bright. It's not where it comes from. It's not what it's used to. But that's very easy to get hold of, fastuosa. Loads of people have got that one. Not everybody can grow it very well. Mine's growing okay. It's not a brilliant specimen by any means, but it blooms and it grows new leaves. Can't really ask much more than that. Okay, this one is Decariana. Now this is an oddity in the Aerangis world. This comes from notably dry deciduous forests and needs a distinct rest, which it didn't get because I didn't know that. Might explain why it didn't bloom or hasn't bloomed yet. But it came as a plant when in fact it was two separate plants. It's growing well. You know, it's pushed out quite a few new leaves since I've got it, and you know the plants are getting bigger. It's hardly ever dropped a leaf. In fact, I'm not sure it even has dropped a leaf since I got it. But you know, if this comes from relatively dry forests, then you know it's not one of these high humidity, soaking wet all the time Aerangis. It's one that you know probably needs a little dry period between each watering. And if it comes from deciduous forests, then that's going to get bright light in the winter. Now I did that. I did put this up near the roof for the winter. Doesn't have a distinct drop in temperature for its rest, but it does get a dramatic increase in light if it's coming from deciduous forests. This is not that easy to get hold of in cultivation apparently, so maybe I was just lucky. But Decariana is not frequently owned in cultivation, apparently. Go on, prove me wrong. Anyway, I love the little plant. I love the wavy edges to the leaves again, you know. It's very close to Mr. Sidii, but it is quite different. It does have spotting on the leaves, that's natural. And yeah, again, it's Vanda-like roots, but not Vanda-like treatment. This doesn't need to be kept absolutely soaking wet every day. So I think this one's going to go to being watered every other day. And now that it's effectively springtime, if this comes from deciduous forests, its light level would drop down now. So this is coming down out of the roof, as from today, because I've only just thought of it. I can't think of everything all the time. So this is coming down now. So for the rest of this year into the autumn, this will get lower light levels. And naturally, if you think about it, deciduous forests, those forests probably get, I don't know whether they get less or more rain. Perhaps I'd better try and find out. But this is going to go to every other day on the watering instead of every single day like the others. So this one's the oddity. This one grows differently. And it needs a drier winter rest with good light. So worth noting if you come across this one. Lovely little plant though. Roots really get a hold on this one. You know, the first few roots on this one really grabbed hold of the mount. They've even gone round the back of the mount and dug in. But aerial roots as well. So for me it's easy to water. Yeah, lovely little plant. Okay, and then the last one is Alicei, the monster. Had some trouble with a couple of the leaves in the past. And this was strange because the little bit of information I had on it says it's a, you know, it's a medium to low light, really humid evergreen forest dweller. You know, intermediate temperatures, up the warm end if you can, but not that important. And having done a bit more work to sort of try and work out what was going wrong with the plant, this plant is a real anomaly. Its normal habitat is evergreen forests, relatively low down, so you wouldn't have high light, and very humid atmospheres. So obviously any aerial roots or anything like that are going to get humidity from the air, whether it rains or not. But in forests like that, you often find everything's dripping a lot of the time, so it's going to get dripped on whether it likes it or not. So, you know, the aerial roots would still get hydrated one way or the other, rain or not. But this is also found growing on rocks and rocky outcrops in full sun. It's difficult to imagine a plant that can cope with both adequately. But I'll see if I can find some pictures of this growing in the wild, literally just in between a couple of rocks in full bloom, you know, and in the sun. So it can take really high light. And I brought it down out of its high light position because I didn't think it was happy up there. Well, in fact, it'll be happy in both positions. But what I don't think it's very happy about is being on the mount. A lot of those older roots have blackened, and I don't think they're viable anymore. That's the only one of the roots that shot out, and then that didn't last long. And those were new roots at one point down the end there, and they're just not happy. But it has grown two new roots, one of which stopped growing in the middle of the winter. That's probably because it was too cold. And the latest root is pushing on nicely. You know, with it's still got a good growing tip on it. But those aerial roots are quite difficult to hydrate. I have to pour water over them over and over and over again to get them to go dark green. Now this has bloomed for me once. If you're thinking of getting this one, a warning. The bloom spike from start to bloom opening was over a year. It actually took 1 year and 2 weeks from the time I saw the spike to the time the first bloom opened. That's what's left of the spike now. I haven't got a clue when it might think about putting another one up, but I've found quite a few sort of people that have said because this is so big, it doesn't do that well on a mount, and it might do better in an open basket, like, you know, with some chunky mix of some sort, so that it can still get air all round the roots, but wouldn't dry out quite as fast and would accommodate its size better. So I might look into doing that. I mean, that is not a happy plant. I mean, it's still growing a new leaf, and the last leaf it grew wasn't too bad. That's, I think in fact the top, hang on, let me put it down. So heavy, it's making me wrist ache. That's not the plant, that's the huge piece of bark it's on. But I think the top 4 leaves are mine. It was quite a young plant when I got it, so that leaf is mine. Then that one, that's one of the ones that got damaged along with this one. See, if that was damp and soggy, that leaf would have to come off, but it's not. These black marks are totally dry, and they happened relatively quickly and then just stopped, and they haven't got any worse. Otherwise I'd be worried, but that they've been there some time, they haven't got any worse, so I'm leaving them alone. To take those 2 leaves off would take a third of the plant off, and then you lose the ability to photosynthesize and everything, and I'd have a very lopsided plant because they're both on one side. I wonder whether it got dripped on. And then when it was up in the highlight situation, it got dripped on, and then the sun got on the leaves through the roof. That's a possibility. But anyway, you know, this new leaf came out. That's not bad. Those couple of little spots there were mealybugs, little tykes, when the leaf was quite young, and now it's pushing out another new leaf. So it is actively growing at the moment, and I think I might actually unmount that, chop a lot of those old roots off, and see if I can get a new root system going. You know, with these. I mean, the new roots that I've grown. There's one out the back that started and stopped dead. I think it was one of the ones near the base. I think it was that one that came out the side and grew right down there. So that is actually one of my roots, and you can see they are capable of branching, but there's something going wrong with them. You know, they're not continuing to grow. So perhaps in a basket with just that extra bit of moisture, you know, not drying out quite so fast. And the roots that have suffered the worst are the ones that are buried in the moss. Now, I've had this one a while. That could be that moss has completely broken down. So I think that's coming out of there and going in a basket. Okay, so that's the Aerangis that I've got. It's quite a big genus. There's quite a lot of plants, a lot of mainland Africa, and some are endemic to Madagascar and one or two of the other islands nearby. Different habitats. Like I've said, you've got, you know, dry deciduous forests to deep evergreen, you know, low light levels. So you've got quite a variety to choose from. So you could sort of, you could almost say there's probably one for most environments that should do well. It's just a matter of getting the right one and giving it the right environment. Yeah. So anyway, that's the three. That's Alicei, Fastuosa, which is the one with the tag on. That's the one with the tag, so that's Mr. City Eye, because that one hasn't got a tag. So that's Decariana, and then the citrata. That be nice to see some signs of life on that. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. It just isn't growing at the moment. But yeah, so that's my 5. Quite a variety. Thick, chunky, leathery leaves, real chunky stuff. That is. Again, big, thick, chunky, leathery leaves, but a miniature plant. And then these are thick. But, you know, wavy edges and spotting that's natural. And then this one, again, quite thick leaves, some slight spotting, but not much, and wavy edges again. And then citrata that tends to have straight leaves, and these are much thinner. These haven't got this fleshiness that the others have got. But a nice little variety. So that's my Aerangis. Hope you've enjoyed that. Bit of culture, look at each individual one. And I'll do some more videos like this as time goes on. Obviously it needs to be a video about some that I've got some of, or it's not going to be much of a video, is it? So obviously you know, I'll have to choose genus that I've got some of, and as a consequence won't be hybrids, it'll be species. That's just the nature of these sort of culture-y type videos. Okay, see you again next time. Thanks for dropping by.